What's good, YouTube? Wilddock Studios here, and today we're gonna go over this podcast with Tim Sweeney and Lex Friedman. And if you haven't seen it, I would recommend going and checking out. Epic Games has been in the news lately. If you haven't heard, they've been in litigation with Apple and Google. I want to say it was a pretty good win for them. So Google was already ruled by judge and jury to basically open up their storefront and allow other competing storefronts on Android devices, which honestly was already kind of a thing. People could sideload APKs, including other storefronts already. SideQuest was a thing on Meta's headsets. There's a number of other kind of middleware type app managers outside of Google Play that already exist. Amazon had their thing for Kindle Fires. It's an open ecosystem, nothing near close to what Apple was doing. Apple was ruled to allow external store purchases from developers as long as they provided their own platform. And the funny thing is that while Apple conceded and allowed this to happen, they were marking up by I think 27% to kind of fill the gap on the 30% markup for their App Store, which is insane because their original argument was, oh, well, if we have to host it on the App Store, we're providing all of these services. That's the reason why it's 30%. And it's like, okay, so if the developers are doing it, offering their storefront, and they're not even using you in any way, shape, or form other than to be on your device, now you're saying it's worth 27%. So your storefront's only a 2% proposition. I don't understand all of that. Anyway, they were ruled in contempt. I think UE has the Epic Store for mobile, and the states are getting it, here relatively soon. I think in a couple of weeks. But it's been available on Android. Whether or not the store is actually a good store or not, that's up in the air. I love Unreal Engine. I've been using it for close to 20 years now. I think it'll be 20 years this year, but it's doesn't mean I always agree with what they do. And it also doesn't mean I always like their products. I think the Epic Store for PC is probably one of the worst storefronts that has ever existed. And we all know how the Fab launch went. I think it's getting better, but, I just wish that they would focus on the right things. And the argument could be stated if they weren't giving away games at the rate in which they are giving away games, then maybe a couple thousand people might still have their job. How you manage your finances is another thing. And, for the longest, Unreal wasn't charging Hollywood, Disney, film production studios, anything. And then they were bleeding money on the store to try to convert Steam users. But yeah, I'm all for multiple stores and competition. I think that it's a great thing. And, I've used Unity. I'm heavily involved in Godot. I'm a contributor. So as an engineer, I put engineering first, and I know how to diversify my toolkit. But we'll let this play, and we'll kind of discuss some of these points. It's an interesting talk. You need to go watch the thing in its entirety if you're, a fan of gaming or a fan of engines and what they're
So
doing.
what's the state of things with Verse? And I guess what you're outlining is if, and hopefully it is successful, this would be a big part of Unreal Engine 6. So what's
So, two huge things right out of the gate. So, the metaverse, nah, just playing. That thing's dead. Or the hype train around it has died. Let's put it that way. But no, Verse. If you're not aware, Verse is a scripting language that is part of UEFN. They'll outline that here in a second. And if you're not a person who understands or knows your Epic ecosystem, your Epic camp history, supposedly the savior of Unreal Engine 6. And it's funny because history repeats itself, and coming out of UDK and Unreal Engine 3, we already had a scripting language in Unreal Engine. It was called Unreal Script. So it's funny how we end up going full circle on things.
What's the timeline? Where do we stand today?
Well, there's a lot going on in parallel. The key thing with Verse is that we have been specifying what we think is the ultimate version of the language with all of the features we want, whereas we've been shipping.
And the funny thing is I've heard that before, because that's what Unreal Script was supposed to be. The ultimate version of a scripting language to do everything that they wanted to do. And honestly, it worked relatively well. One of the big pushbacks from developers migrating over to Unreal Engine 4 was the loss of a true scripting language and having to move to blueprints. And blueprints are technically, they're no longer experimental, but they're not feature complete. And the reflection system, if anybody's ever worked in that, you have to go compile any new nodes that you want to exist as a scripting language from C++. So it's a huge bottleneck on iteration times. And then because that is pretty much the only scripting language available to you out of a binary version of the engine, it's a pretty large burden for people to constantly have to go through. Now, C++ is very powerful, but not having a clear separation, say like with Unity or Godot, where your scripting language is one thing and your engine language is another, also creates a little bit of complexity when it comes to developing titles.
More modest versions of the language over time. We've released dozens of updates to it over the past year and a half. And the idea is that the shipping version gains more and more features over time, but each maintaining backwards compatibility with old versions and each continuing to improve and approach the ultimate version of it as we go. And we've been doing this experiment entirely within the world of Unreal Editor for Fortnite.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you want to know how this is going, just go look up anything. Go to Source. Go to their Discord, which is, Source's Unreal Engine's Discord channel. But used to be Unreal Engine Slackers, just a name change. Go to Reddit. Go to their forums. Go see how this is going. And I don't mean like marketing strategies from people releasing their content or Epic's marketing talking about how marvelous this is. Go look at feedback from people who have actually been using this thing before you formulate opinions on whether or not it's going to be the savior. I also find it really, really strange and funny that Unreal Engine 5 is in the state that it's in, and it's not just me. Don't take my word for it. Go look at some of the comments around some of these videos of people who are, have YouTube channels that have actually, started talking about like, oh wow, we're not even into 5.6 yet, and this generation's probably had a little bit more than what I would call a rocky start with Unreal Engine 5. PSO caching is still a horrendous mess. The engine itself is having all kinds of problems with using performant methods like LODs, HLODs, auto PSO caching and light bakes inside of their new world partition system. So GPU light mass, like anything that you're trying to do in this engine that Unreal Engine 4 did really well in 8th-gen has been problematic. If it has not been for virtual production improvements, megalights, ray tracing technology, which they ripped out, put back in, ripped out again, put back in, like Chaos, we were supposed to have this, mind-blowing real-time destruction system. I remember the huge hype behind it, and just go look at the amount of issues that have happened there with it. Things are getting better. 5.5 is better than where we've been. I will admit that. but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see the games that have come out that use this engine that are still struggling pretty badly. So yeah, I'll let this continue to play.
For now, we want to test this and iterate with Fortnite creators in just the metaverse usage case before we make it available to all of our partners using Unreal Engine for all of their projects. And the idea is to iteratively improve it and build it out, because right now, UEFN has relatively few features for programming. It needs a lot more, and everything we add makes the world a much better place for Fortnite creators. And we're adding major new APIs every few months throughout the course of this year. Whereas Unreal Engine licensees who are building standalone games.
And I want to say something too. Like, again, I love this engine. I'll always use it. I mean, it does some things really, really well. Sequencer is amazing. I do like Fortnite as a game. I play it with my kids. But there is a conflict of interest whenever you tailor your engine around, a V-Buck heaven over here, right? So if fixes go in or people request features that are counterproductive to like their goal with Fortnite, go ask anybody who's tried to merge a PR. Anyone who works directly with Source that's like, yo, this will fix this, or this will continue to make Lumen work with DX11. Believe me, I've experienced this firsthand. Sometimes you'll get a response that's like, yeah, we're not going to merge this because it is going to mess up something that we've done in Fortnite. And it's like, okay, when is a game that you're making with your engine, like when is that a higher priority than like it being general purpose and like actually working for other developers? Like that's where I start running into issues with this. Because at that point you're like gatekeeping, like it's a conflict of interest, and this is happening more often than not, especially here lately.
Already have access to the full engine through C++. They have massive expectations of an API, and so we can't release this to them until we build up all of the essential features that they'll need for building their gameplay in the future. And so we have these two different tendrils of progress. There's Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah, and this is another thing. People have access to the C++ API if they want systems. It's funny because Epic's like, oh, we can't release a scripting language until we deliver on all this stuff. I don't know, maybe because like you're inventing a completely new scripting language and there's, C#, Python. There's tons of scripting languages that you could choose from that all pretty good interpreters into C++ native. So a lot of people are going to say Tim just wants to have his own scripting language again. Like Verse is not anything else and would be attached to his name. I don't really know the politics or bureaucracy behind all of that, but I can say something feels a little bit meh with all of that. But the other thing is that like the successful UE5 developers, the ones that have actually made the engine performant, have rewritten entire systems in C++. That is just the truth of the matter. They're not sitting around waiting on your magic little savior or Unreal Engine 6 or Verse. They're either going back to UE4 or they're using a heavily modified UE5, not what's coming out of the gate from launcher. Just putting that out there.
5 for game developers, and there's Unreal Engine 5 targeting the Fortnite community. And there's different bits of development that are only in one area of it that aren't applied to both. Like not all of the Unreal Engine 5 features are actually available in Fortnite because some of them we haven't figured out or haven't gotten to the point where we can deploy them to all 7 platforms in a platform independent way. And so the place where all of these different threads of development come together is Unreal Engine 6. Mm-hmm. And it's a few years away.
It's so funny too because like that statement that he just said, the place where all of this comes together and allows you to be the most performant, push your game to any platform for any device. I promise you, if you go back and you watch the release of Unreal Engine 3, the release of Unreal Engine 4, the release of Unreal Engine 5, and now supposedly the Holy Grail is supposed to be Unreal Engine 6. It is the same tagline and the same statement that has been made over and over and over again. Just gonna put that out there too.
We don't have an exact time frame, but we could be seeing preview versions of it perhaps 2 to 3 years from now, and we're making continuous progress towards it.
So that's really nice. So there's this ultimate version of a language that you're constantly working on and thinking through. Then there's the shipped version of the language that's used by a large number of people, but still in the constrained environment of the Unreal editor for Fortnite, so for the Fortnite game. And then there awaits the more general Unreal editor, Unreal Engine, for the lessons learned in the Fortnite context to be integrated in the more general context of creating simulated worlds for all kinds of games, including Fortnite. It's a really nice setup because you're both. It's a testing ground of the language in Fortnite, and you're keeping an eye on what the ultimate thing will look like. Also necessary
I
to,
mean,
to deliver all the features that
Unreal Engine in general is supposed to then, them eating their dog food with Fortnite. But there's pros and cons to that. And if it works out this way, if it is something that allows some of the pain points of Blueprint to be solved, then I welcome it. But they have a ways to go. They need to get away from asset binary systems. They need to get away from 30-minute shader compilation issues. There's a lot to be done here to kind of solve a lot of these pain points.
we mentioned. Brilliant.
The aim for UE6 is to bring the best of both worlds together. Much easier gameplay programming for the Fortnite community and for licensees. More scalability to large-scale simulations of all sorts. Greater ease of use, meaning it will be easier to hire programmers who are familiar with and experienced with the thing. But also ensure that every game developer has the full deployment capabilities so that it can build a...
And see, I feel like that last statement was BS. It'll be easier to hire people who are familiar with the thing. What are you talking about? This is a brand new language. Its syntax is based around other languages, but it's not going to be the same as if you were to reach out and hire someone who is familiar with C# or Python. So I feel like that's like saying, oh, it's easier to reach out and hire someone who's familiar with Blueprint. It took years for people to gain knowledge and be familiar with, how Unreal Engine works, because it's unlike anything else. So I don't know if I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on that.
The game once and then ship it anywhere. Like, the ultimate version of this enables a game developer to build a game of any sort, either or simultaneously both ship it into Fortnite as a Fortnite island that players can go into, bring their Fortnite items and cosmetics and interoperate properly, or ship as a standalone game, or both. And if they ship as a standalone game, they shouldn't be missing out on the open economy either, because in this time frame we'll have opened up the Fortnite item economy to third-party developers of all sort. Hopefully through a standards body, but there might be multiple phases of it, so that if you choose to ship a standalone game, you can still choose to have Fortnite items work in your game, and have your game items work in Fortnite, and have your item economy integrated with the overall metaverse economy, and solve the really core problem of the game industry that Matthew Ball has been documenting over the past few years.
Yeah, by the way, Matthew Ball has been really helpful. It's he wrote a really great book that I recommend people check out. There's an updated version.
Wow. Yeah. So go watch this thing in its entirety. Here's hoping that, what they outline here actually comes to fruition. I think that Epic Games needs to focus on the current engine and its current problems, and dig deep into their tool belt to solve, the nickname that's been given to Unreal Engine 5, Stutter Engine 5. I think they have enough on their plate to worry about than to be already starting to try to ramp this hype train up around Unreal Engine 6. I don't understand it. I mean, it's okay. As a developer, I want a performant engine that I can optimize, that runs great on everything from mobile devices all the way up to the most powerful consoles. And I can tell you that it's been a struggle as a developer, as someone who outsources resources, as someone who makes plugins. It's been a struggle. Here's to hoping to see if it gets better. Anyway, smack that like and subscribe button. If you're not a member of the Discord, consider joining the Wild Duck Studios family Discord. and also consider joining the YouTube channel. Until next time, guys, happy developing and toodles.